Today we're going to go through our Web Edition program. This will be a walkthrough of how to use different functions within the system. This is the Web Edition program here. If you haven't installed it, you can go to a link that I'm going to type in the chat, which is demo.sitelink.com. Again, that's demo.sitelink.com. That's the full version of the program. So if you haven't installed it yet, again, you can go to demo.sitelink.com, bring that up, install it, do move-ins, take payments, different transactions in the program, because if you decide to use it, you'll then be given your own set of codes to log in, and your information will be there. We'll convert your software that you're currently using, and we'll bring over your units, bring over your tenants, and put those tenants in the units. That's something that we do all the time. So in this particular demo, I'm going to log in with demo for all the codes. This is our Web Edition program, and by Web Edition, we're referring to the fact that it's online. So if you do a move-in, you take a payment, you do any function within the program, it's going to be available not only on your machine, but on any other machine that you have running the program. If you have more than one computer at the site, that's no problem. You could have a computer at home, on your laptop. You could be anywhere, literally in the world, running Web Edition, and when you perform an action, all of those computers are going to have access to that information. If your computer goes down for whatever reason, install it again, and you're going to be up and running. You don't have to make any backups. SiteLink is making those backups for you on our servers. We're based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. You'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner, and I can also move it to the right, is our reminder screen. The reminder screen is the first point of contact on a daily basis that you want to look at. The reminder screen is a big part of the benefit of this software. In other words, it's telling you what needs to happen. Specifically when it comes to past dues. Whatever your past due process is, that can be put into our setup checklist, and then SiteLink is going to mirror that. So for example, if 5 days past due, that's when you need to be notified to print a past notice. SiteLink is going to do that. And down the line, up to and including an auction. This reminder screen is not just past dues, it's also items like credit cards to be processed, which you'll see here. Expiring credit cards is going to tell you about that. There's a lot of different options that can be set up here. Really, whatever your reminder is for past dues or just in general can be put here and use the system in order for it to tell you what needs to happen. Now in this particular database, a lot of people are late, so we see a lot of reminders. If I logged into your site and I saw a bunch of reminders like this, I would think that we could potentially do a better job of processing those reminders. We want to have the goal of getting that reminder screen basically blank every day if possible. So we double click on the appropriate item. So for example, credit cards. If I double clicked on credit cards, it's going to take me to the respective screen in order to process that in this case. And once I process this credit card or any task, it will come off the list. Now some things are automatic, like locking someone out of the gate or putting a late fee on someone's account. You don't have to push a button in order for that to happen. It'll go on automatically. But something like an overlock, putting a lock on someone's unit, that is more of a manual process because obviously you're going out to the unit in order to put a lock on it. So that is part of the reason why you'd want to double click or process that event. Notices, things like past due notices, invoices, you can have those print automatically. That is a setup option. So that's the reminder screen. The next option here in terms of our operations screen, as you can tell from our navigator on the left, I can go from operations to adjustments to company and so on. Right now we're in the operations screen. The first button here is Move-In. Click on Move-In. In this particular database, as you can see at the top, we have 147 vacant units. Now I could certainly scroll through and choose the unit that I want to move into. That's not a problem. But depending on how many vacant units you have, it may be quicker for you to choose the unit size on the right. So for example, if I wanted to look at my 5x10s, again, I could scroll through the list. I'm using my mouse to scroll through. Or I could click 5x10 on the right. By clicking 5x10 on the right, I'm looking at the 3 vacant units that I have available as opposed to 147 that are vacant. So I double click on the unit, that's step 1. 3 steps to a move-in. Number 1, choosing the unit that you want to move into. Number 2, adding the tenant information that you want to have moved into that unit. And then number 3, making sure that the charges are correct. So far I've chosen my unit. You'll notice on this list there's a bunch of tenant names. These are existing tenants. So if I wanted to move, let's say Brian, into his 2nd or 3rd unit, I would double click on his name here. That again is an existing tenant. You also have access to past tenants. You'll notice on the right hand side the default is current tenants, but there's also an option here that says all past and current. If I choose all past and current, I'm looking at all my current tenants along with my past tenants. You'll notice a search button here, search option at the top of the screen, which is in several places in the program. If I want to search for someone's name, let's say the name was Paul, I type in Paul and very quickly it's going to show me any Paul. Now the Paul could be the name, typically that's what you'd be looking for, or it could be the city, or it could be in the address. Wherever the name Paul is, email address, we'd see it. That's if we're choosing an existing tenant. If we are choosing or adding a new tenant, we're going to click Add on the right-hand side, and we put in their information. You'll notice that in this demo, it's only requiring us to put in the first and last name. In your respective database, you can choose what is required. Anything in green is required. So typically you would have first and last name, address, city, state, zip, and so on. Again, you define that in our setup checklist, and I'll talk about the setup checklist in a little bit. So we can put in their name in this case, and their last name, so first and last name. That's all that's required in this particular case. Also, a gate code is assigned to every tenant that we move in, which you can change if you want to. So at this point, I've added a tenant, I've chosen the unit, and now I'm in the final section where I make sure that my charges are correct. Depending on your default, you're going to either be first month billing or anniversary date billing. That's a choice. In this case, we're first month billing. We're on a monthly basis. You have different options in terms of whether or not you would tax rent, send an invoice, or if you charge an invoice fee. These can be defaulted also, so if you're always going to send an invoice, we can have this checked by default so that you don't have to check it every single time. Invoice days before due, this is how many days before their rent charge is due do we send an invoice. 15 is our default, that's typical. You could have your default as 20, 30 days if you want to, and you can change it per person. So maybe your default is 15 days, and that's what's going to come up every time we do a move-in, but for this particular tenant, you want to make them 20. Well, we can change that. So if I change this to 20, this particular tenant is going to have their invoice 20 days before. Then we have a document delivery section where we can choose how we want to typically contact this person. I see a lot of companies really moving towards or pushing email in terms of having this automation within the program. So if by default you want to have people emailed, we could have that checked. And maybe we choose the first 10 people are to be emailed. But person 11, they want to be printed. Well, I could choose print for that 11th person, and it would know, for example, if I was sending an invoice that people 1 through 10, they're going to be emailed. But person 11 is going to be printed. Again, depending on what choice is here, determines how we're going to interact with a specific tenant. But once we've set it, we don't have to do it again. We just click a button and it's going to go ahead and process it. The next section is auto bill. You have 2 different options for auto billing. Number 1 would be credit card. You fill in all the credit card information here to be processed, in this case on the 1st of every month. Or we can set up ACH billing. That's debiting someone's checking account. The differences between ACH and credit card. Well, with credit card, when you process it, you're going to know immediately if it went through or not. It'll say captured or not captured. ACH is like a check. When someone hands you a check, more than likely it's going to be good. There is the potential that it bounces, that you have to have an NSF. The same thing with an ACH. So SiteLink will prompt you when a ACH debit is bad, and you can process it just like an NSF. The second difference is credit card is a little more expensive in terms of the point of sale fees that you have to pay, whereas ACH is around 25 to 30 cents a transaction. So there's certainly a cost savings. Some people look at it that they want to have more than one option to give to customers. So, for example, some people will give you a debit card that has a Visa logo on it. Technically, that's a credit card, and you can certainly process it as such. But in terms of the customer, that's money coming out of their account. You could, if you wanted to, offer to switch them from credit card to ACH, and now you're saving more money in terms of fees. There's marketing, and we can have marketing required if we want to, and you can ask how they heard about us, amongst other questions. There's a lot of ways to customize the program. So in this particular demo, I can do whatever I want, but you may have limitations in terms of whether or not I could edit rent on a move-in, whether or not I can access certain screens. So for example, a typical limitation would be limiting certain people from the setup checklist. So all of your defaults can't be edited. So be aware of that. Know there's a lot of ways that we can customize the program once we're in it. There's a little plus sign here beside initial rent. We can click that and change the rent. We could add a discount plan, and you could certainly add your discount plans and edit them. So for example, if I chose 7th month free, it's going to put the 7th month free in this case. Different options on whether or not you charge an administrative fee, sell merchandise. So I can click the plus sign, add merchandise if I want to. Boxes, locks, whatever the case may be. There's insurance, so you can certainly add an insurance policy during move-in. And then there's recurring charges. You may or may not have recurring charges, such things as it says here, water and electric fee. But if you do, if you have something other than rent, other than insurance that goes on the account every month, you can add these recurring charges like a garbage removal fee, and it'll go on the account every month. One button that you'll see here that's in multiple parts of the program, but I think really is useful during the move-in, is the shortcuts button. So let's say we're in the middle of a move-in, and we've chosen the unit, chosen the tenant, we've put all that information in, and then inevitably someone walks in to take a payment. Well, I can click Shortcuts, jump to the payment screen, take the payment, and when I'm done, come back. I don't lose my place in my move-in. I don't have to do it over again. Then we have a button called e-photos and e-files. You can take up to 9 photos of people. Typically, customers will either scan a driver's license, which is an option to scan, or they'll take a photo from a web camera. That's fine too. There's up to 9 areas here that we can have photos. You might take a picture of their car, for example, that they drive. You can also upload images, like a JPEG or a PDF. So if you scan a document and you want that document to be part of this list, you could upload that here too. Then we save it. Once we're saving it here, it's talking to our servers. We're based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, so we now know this person has been moved in. And you have different options in terms of forms that you want to print. Obviously, you'd want to print a lease, but you'll notice there's other options like a credit card authorization form, insurance sign-up form. You can pick and choose what forms are able to be processed on a move-in, and you can have them checked as defaulted, or you can choose them at that time. Then we take a payment, and then we print a lease. One thing that is a great tool that people are really excited about with SiteLink is the e-sign, the electronic signature. And that's what you see down here. Now you can certainly print out a lease, and the lease will have your own verbiage, and you can print out as a piece of paper and have them sign it with a pen. That's no problem. But if you want to, you can set up the SiteLink e-sign, which will have, again, the same verbiage, but now it lets you do different things. For example, having them sign with the mouse on the computer, or you could hand them a tablet, or you could email them the lease. So different options that are available, but this is a paperless lease. So if I click on e-sign, it'll ask me, do I want to sign in person or email the link? I'm going to sign in person in this particular example. Again, we could be handing them a tablet, but I'm obviously on my computer, so I'm showing it from there. So it's saying, let's give the customer control, and the customer will see their lease, they'll go through it and sign. They can either use the default signature, or they can draw their own signature. It's not just about signatures, though. You can have initials. You can have yes or no type questions. Are you military, yes or no? You can have check boxes. Do you accept these terms? So it's not just about signing. Obviously, that is a big part of it. And then choose confirm signing. And then we have different options. Do we want to email it? Do we want to print it? And so on. Know that this lease is available at a later time. We can bring it up from within the program. And then we finish. And that would be a move-in. So I went through that thoroughly, but no, in the end, it's choosing a unit, choosing a tenant, make sure the charges are correct, take a payment, print the lease. That's a move-in. The next button here, payment screen, for all intents and purposes, is the main screen of the program. Again, you'll see the search button, so I can quickly find someone. Double-click on their name. And now I'm in the payment screen. For this particular tenant, they have 2 units. I can click on each individual unit and just deal with the unit in here. If I want to take a payment for this case 106, I could take a payment here, or 220. Now I'm taking a payment for 220. Or I leave it on the default as all units, and therefore I can take a payment for both units at the same time. Taking a payment, I put the amount at the top of the screen, and then the method, cash, check, credit card. If you're taking a credit card payment, it'll go automatically through. With SiteLink, we have a lot of different choices for different providers and partners in terms of kiosks, companies that'll put leads into your program, website development companies, credit card gateways. One thing I wanted to mention, that part of this company is what we call SiteLink Merchant Services. So you do have choices of who you can certainly use for your credit cards. At the same time, if you like SiteLink service, know that SiteLink Merchant Services is a part of this company, so that you can certainly have an in-house solution all in one in terms of the software and credit card process. Pretty much everything you'd want to see for customers in here. If I want to look at their notes, or if I want to add a note, I can see this here. Here's all of their historical notes. I can type in a note like, call this person, for example. Type it in, and then save it. And that's going to show in their historical notes. So in this case, my initials are demo. Your real initials would be in there, and then it would put that you called this person. I can see different reports. Probably the most popular report in terms of an individual tenant is called the Ledger History Report here. I click on Ledger and see each individual unit. We can zoom in with the zoom button. All of our reports can be exported to PDF, Word documents, Excel files. I can give credit to the unit in here. The majority of the time we're coming in and taking payments in the upper right-hand corner. Their photo would also show in the middle of the screen. That's the payment screen. Transfer. Transfer is a fairly simple process. You double-click on the unit you're transferring out of, double-click on the unit that you're transferring into, and SiteLink will make the appropriate prorate. So if you're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, it's going to charge you some more money. If you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, it's going to give you credit. It's going to do that automatically. You have an option to change the rate on the second unit in the upper right-hand corner. And if there was a discount plan on the first unit, you can certainly remove that from the second unit if you wish. The majority of the time you come in here and SiteLink will make the prorate, and you click OK, and the transfer is done very quickly. The next button is Move Out. Choose the unit that you're moving out of. There is an option on the right-hand side to prorate rent and recurring charges. So for example, let's say someone is due on the 1st and they're moving out on the 15th. You may prorate, if you want to, that you would give them money back from the 15th until the end of the month. You may not. If that's the case, either don't click this option or we can have it disabled. If someone owes you money, you can certainly make a payment or take a payment for the remaining charges, or mark remaining charges as bad debt, which means that they'll still owe money. When someone's moved out, at any point in time, you certainly can take payment for that person after the fact. There's an exit survey. Ask why people are leaving, and that will be stored in the SiteLink program. You can give refunds back directly to credit cards if you want to. There's an option right here to either leave the refund on the account or return it to the customer or apply it to another unit. So if you want to give a refund back directly to a credit card, you certainly can do that here, and you could show that it was paid with a check also. We click OK to finalize. I mentioned how you could sell merchandise on a move-in. You can also sell merchandise once someone is in a unit. This particular merchandise button here, this is for walk-in merchandise. This is for people that don't have a unit with you and they come in and they want to buy your inventory. You click merchandise purchase and it's the same screen as if you were doing it from the move-in or the payment screen, and I could double click on an item and I could change the quantity if I want to, and click OK to take a payment. The collection calls, this is derived from the reminder screen. If I click on call past dues, it takes collection calls, just like if I click collection calls here, same screen. You're going to use this as your way to facilitate those phone calls. So I can double click on someone that's late and put in my message, called this person, for example, left a voicemail. You can pick a note too. If you have certain default notes, if you're always putting called and left message on voicemail, we can choose that. We can also edit the note. You can put that in as a default. Let's just say mine is test in this case. I save it, and it's going to show on the note screen that I referred to earlier in the payment screen. Now that I put my note in, I see the last note says March 9th. So I know, because I put in that note, that I made that call. That would be the process that I recommend. If you don't see a note here, you're going to go under the assumption that a call wasn't made. That's the benefit of the collection call screen. Click close. The next button is tasks and letters. Again, many of these items are derived from the reminder screen. So for example, if I had past due notices, overlocks, if I double clicked on it, it would take me to the tasks and letters screen. For example, overlock. I don't have any that need an overlock right now, but they'd be on this list. And I could print this list out if I wanted to. Take that list, go around to my different units, put the locks on their units, and then when I'm done, I select everybody and click process on the right-hand side. And that will take them off the list. That'll show that I put locks on their units. And then it will come off the reminder screen. Invoices. You go into the screen and it'll show everyone that's due an invoice. Again, this could be printed automatically if you want to. You could select everybody if they were due an invoice and process it, and their name will come off the list. We could also email it. In terms of email, you can use Microsoft Outlook if you have that program. A lot of people like that. But you don't have to use Outlook. You could use Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo. Any of the SMTP type providers can be put into the system. The great thing about using an SMTP option as opposed to a program like Outlook is that you don't have to have anything installed on your given machine. Obviously, you have to have internet, but if you're using Outlook, you have to have Outlook on every single machine. If you use the SMTP option, you can be from anywhere and process an email. The next button is credit cards. It's a list of everyone that's due. Let's just say your first month billing and you have a couple hundred people to be processed. That's great. You select all. Batch process. So for some people that I talk to, they come from prior systems where they've had to manually put in credit cards every single month. And that takes a lot of time. Well, with SiteLink, you can select everybody, click batch process, and it goes through. If it doesn't go through, let's say you have a couple hundred credit cards and a couple don't go through, their name is going to stay on the list. So it'll be obvious who didn't go through. You can certainly try them again or contact the person and let them know their credit card didn't go through. ACH is a similar process where you see a list of names and you can select everyone and process those transactions. There's an option on the left-hand side on the reminder screen called ACH Get Returns. That's the option that you choose or run to see if any came back as bad. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a tenant screen. You're going to notice that a lot of these options are in different parts of the program. So I've mentioned the notes screen a few times in this presentation. The notes is available in the payment screen. It's available in the map. It's available in the collection call screen. It's all the same notes. So if you see the notes or you see some of these other buttons, like ledger settings, for example, there are multiple parts of the screen. Know that if it has the same name, it's the same thing. Some people like to access the program from different ways. So for example, some people like to use the map as their main way to interface through the program, and I'll talk about the map in a moment. But know that, for example, if we click Edit, we're editing the address here. This address will be changed in the payment screen also. Two buttons that I really want to focus on that I know are very helpful for customers, but a lot of times people don't focus on them because rightly so, they're thinking about doing move-ins, taking payments, a lot of those core functions, especially when you first start using the program. But those customers that I've talked to that have really latched on to inquiries and reservations and CRM, customer relationship management, see a lot of benefit from it. So for example, with the inquiries and reservations, someone calls us up and they say, how much are your 10 by 10s? Well, you may or may not have a specific process that you're currently using. Well, you can come in here and you can click Add and put in that person's name and phone number. You don't have to put in all their information, but some way to contact them. Name and phone number, name and email. And then SiteLink will have a process to tell you how to interact with them that you've set up. So for example, the day of you want to call them back. 2 days later you may want to email them, tell them all the things they need to know about self-storage before they move in. Day 4 you do this. Whatever that flow is, however long you want to contact that particular customer, SiteLink is going to tell you based on the person. So you don't have to think about, well, how am I supposed to interact with this person? When will they put in an inquiry? And have to keep that in the back of your mind. SiteLink is going to do the work for you in that particular case. We also have an inquiries report, which will tell you things in terms of your conversion rates and other metrics. So for many people, they haven't focused too much in terms of their inquiry process, and because you're not focusing on the data, you're not able to have those metrics to see how you can improve. But when you start being diligent about putting in all your inquiries and reservations into this screen, and SiteLink's telling you how to interact with them going forward, and you become more diligent about calling them back timely and keeping that interaction going, you inevitably will see more move-ins. At least that's the feedback that I get from customers, and I've had a lot of people tell me that this has literally changed their business around by making this a priority. So I highly recommend it. The CRM screen, customer relationship management screen, this is a way for you to interact with customers, inquiries, moved out tenants for reasons other than being delinquent. So for example, welcome letter that prompts you to print or email. You could have a way that you interact with past due tenants, ways that you interact with inquiries. Maybe on their birthday, you want to acknowledge them. A lot of people love to be acknowledged when their birthday comes up. SiteLink can do that. A certain day of the year, like in December, you may want to say Happy Holidays. A calendar date can be brought up in order to tell you to do that. So think about all the different ways you potentially would want to interact with people over the life cycle of them being a tenant. And SiteLink can prompt you to interact with them, not only through printing, but also text messaging. Text messaging, I would say, at this point, is right up there with e-sign in terms of popularity from within the program, especially with past dues. So when we send our past due notices, when we send other past due items, we can send a text messages. It's highly effective. So when you send a text message, first of all, it's much cheaper than sending a notice. A lot of people are, instead of sending a notice through snail mail, they're using text messaging. So for example, let's say a stamp is costing roughly 50 cents. There's also your time, which a lot of people don't factor in. Your time, your ink, your paper, your envelope, all of that. Let's just say that's worth $1 to send a notice. Well, a text message is going to cost you roughly 7/10 of a penny. So on 100 notices, instead of $100, that's costing you 70 cents. So number one, it's very cost effective. Number two, it's extremely effective. So when you send that text message, click of a button, it's sent. Your customers are going to see that text. It's going to have a link for them to go pay online, so people can pay online through SiteLink or through your website 24 hours a day. And it, bottom line, reduces past dues. So I hear some phenomenal figures. Some people tell me 20-25% reductions in past dues simply by sending text messages. So if you haven't considered it, I would highly suggest it because, again, it is extremely effective. The next button here is Access. We'll work with your gate access program. So we work with all the top vendors. If someone moves in and they're late, we're going to lock them out of their unit. If they're late and they pay up, we're going to unlock them automatically. You can certainly change their code. There's a section down here for certain providers that you can have, quote unquote, other authorized gate access. Here's an example of where you use that. For example, let's say that you have a pharmaceutical company, and the pharmaceutical company has either the company itself as the primary contact or a given person is the primary contact, but yet you know that there's going to be other sales reps that have access to the unit, and you're okay with that. If that's the case, you can add those other names here to that unit. They're not going to be sent any bills, but they have access to that unit with their own gate code. So as long as that unit's paid up, those tenants can get into the unit. If that unit becomes late, none of those tenants can get, none of those people can get into the unit. There's only one tenant, but those other authorized people, again, can get into the unit if it is paid up. They can't get into the unit when it is delinquent. And the last button on the operations screen is Daily Close. Daily Close is a way for you to verify your work. This does not mean that you have to go to the bank every day, but I would recommend closing every day to be diligent and on top of the payments that came in case there's anything that needs to be corrected. What you do is you click Proof Edit on the right-hand side. You'll see all your cash, check, credit cards that have come in, and you type those amounts under Step 1. Cash, check, credit cards. Once you've typed in those amounts, you close today, you click Close, and that's your way of giving your stamp of approval that what SiteLink says you took in is what you actually took in. Once that's done, you'll be given a deposit report that you can print out or look at historically. That's the operations screen. Adjustments. Prior to making a close, you can go into Ledger Adjustments, choose any tenant, and if they have a payment, you could delete the payment. You have the option when you delete the payment to give a refund directly back to a credit card. It'll ask if you want to give a refund. Again, there are different options. You may have it set up that myself as a manager, for example, I can't delete a payment. There are different ways to have settings. Now, let's just assume that we can do whatever we want in the program. There are no limitations. SiteLink does a very good job of reporting what's going on. Who took that payment? Who deleted it? Who gave this credit? And so on. There's a lot of choices in terms of giving reasons. Well, why was this payment deleted? You have to put in a reason why. So, of course, you want to look at your reports and you want to see what's going on. Know that SiteLink does a very good job. A lot of times people are excited for obvious reasons for things like paperless leases and text messaging and so on. But a big core of this program is our reporting. And it's not a flashy thing, but I know so many people that they've chosen SiteLink because they couldn't trust the reports from their other software. So again, it's not a flashy thing, but I can tell you that our reports work, and we spend a lot of time in making sure that they do. And I'll talk about the reports in a moment. Another option here is to transfer a payment to another unit. So if you make a mistake, you take a payment on the wrong unit, you can put it to another one. And delete an account. Delete an account is only used for a specific situation, and that would be if you move someone in and then a few minutes later they told you they didn't want the unit anymore. Some people would not want to see a move in and move out in that situation because they feel it may skew the reporting. So in this case, there is a delete account option. Once the day has been closed, you cannot delete. You would have to move them out. NSF, that stands for non-sufficient funds, same thing as saying bad check. You can highlight someone, choose their payment if they had one here, and you could reverse it on the right-hand side, and you could add a bad check fee. Not only do we have the option to reverse check payment, but you could also reverse credit card payments from here if you ever happen to get a chargeback. I don't see chargebacks that often, but they can happen, and that's a way for you to reverse it. Moved out accounts. Moved out account screen is a way for you to view information for moved out tenants. So when you move them out, you're not losing their information. I can choose someone, and it just looks very similar to the payment screen. I can come in here and take a payment. I can look at different reports. If they're due a refund, I could process it here. If they have bad debt, I could write it off if I determine that I'm not going to get that money back. All those options are in here. One nice function when you go to the moved out account screen, if you've ever moved someone out by mistake, you can click undo move out. You have up to 5 days to undo a move out. Refunds. Now, we could have processed a refund during the move out. We can process a refund from the moved out account screen, and we have a dedicated refund screen. So if someone is due a refund, I can double click on their account and I'm brought to the refund screen, the same screen you'd see from the move out process or from the moved out account screen. We have different options. Do we want to give the money back? Do we want to return it? Do we want to apply it to another tenant, excuse me, to another unit if they had another unit? Do we want to dismiss it? Some companies don't give refunds back. They dismiss it, and that's an option here. And then we can apply it to their charges. So maybe they damaged their unit and we want to apply their refund to their charges. We could do that here too. And the last option in the adjustment screen is returns and inventory adjustments. This is where our inventory items are. If someone comes back to give a return, we can choose return and put in the receipt number. We can make our inventory go up or down depending if we receive a shipment. More inventory, we can make it go down. Maybe an item scrap, we can't sell it, we can make it go down that way too. You want to put in your given inventory when you set up your inventory items. When you sell your inventory items, the amount will reduce. But at the same time, we have ways to make our inventory go up or down. Company screen, a lot of it is setup related, and specifically a button called setup. The setup button would be the first button that you go into when you start using SiteLink. That's its own conversation to talk about the setup, but know that we're here to help. We certainly can talk to you about how to set things up and go in here and put in your defaults. What are your late fees? What's your tax rate? What does your rental agreement look like? All those things that are specific to you, you're going to put in this screen. Inventory setup is also a setup item where we come in here and add our inventory item. What are we selling? What's the name of it? What does it sell for? What does it cost us? And so on. We put that in here. Okay, so the next button here is SiteLink eSign Console. The SiteLink eSign Console is a way for you to handle your emailed leases. So you may not ever email leases. If you don't email leases, then don't use this screen. But when you email a lease to someone, you have someone on the phone and you say that you want to close that deal over the phone, let's say. You say, I want to move in a few days from now. And you say, well, you know what? Let's process your lease right now through this email option. Well, they may not sign on their computer right when they're on the phone. So that's what this screen's all about. It'll tell you we're out for a tenant signature. We're awaiting a manager signature. So in other words, if it's out for a tenant signature, this is who we're waiting on to sign. Once they sign, it's going to go to awaiting manager signature. Once the manager signs, we have a completed lease. If the tenant is taking too long, if you feel that they're not signing within a reasonable time period, you can go in here and you can void it. There's an action to void that particular tenant here in the out for tenant signature, and then we go to the voided section. Competitor tracking, you can add your competitors in terms of who they are, in terms of who they are and where they are in your city or town. And then also rates. So if you call and ask what their rates are, if you mystery shop or you look at their website and see what their rates are, you can put it here. A couple things that relates to. Number one, when you put in your competitors, where they are, if you go to the report screen and map tenants, the map tenants, this is Google Maps. Google Maps will show your facility in the center of your city or town. Let's just pretend this is your facility here in yellow. Your tenants will show in red. And we can zoom in down to street level if we want to, see literally where they live. And your competitors would show in green. I don't have any competitors in this database, but they would show in green. So It's one thing to know your zip codes, and that's important. It's another thing to understand where they fall on the map, and it really gives a good indication of where everybody's actually coming from. That's Google Maps, and that's how competitors relates to that. There's also a competitor tracking report where you can see your units and sizes and compare them, the rates to your competitors. Unit notes, here's all your units, and you can put notes in here, typically maintenance type notes. For example, this unit needs to be swept out. You can mark units as service required so that you know that you need to edit that unit. Modify units, here's all your different units, and you can come in here and edit the size. You can edit the width and length and the rate. Utilities, you wouldn't be in the utility screen that often, but you can come in here and look at different items. For example, you could inspect charges. By going in the inspect charges screen, you could see a report that will tell you who created that charge. Did SiteLink create the charge? Did an employee create it? You can look really deep in terms of the charges. We could change someone's anniversary billing date here. Diagnostic screen, we can run this diagnostic and it will tell us things like how much hard drive capacity you have, how much RAM you have. So sometimes if there's something that's working a little strangely, we'll look at this diagnostic and we'll see, well, this computer's been running for a month. Let's restart it. That could be something we could infer from this diagnostic. You can change your password. Everybody will have their own username and password. We have a form screen in the upper right-hand corner. The form screen is every form that is available. Now, you don't have to use all these forms. If you don't want to use one of these forms, we can take it off the list. You can certainly edit our forms, and you should when it comes to a lease, receipt, invoice. You want to edit our forms, but you may have a form we don't have. You certainly can add it to this list, and at any point in time, you can choose a form and print it, email it, text it for a current past tenant or someone on the waiting list. Receipts, you can look at all of your historical receipts here and bring them up, view them, or print them. The price optimizer, we have another webinar on here that goes in detail into all of these different items. If you go to YouTube and you do search for SiteLink and then a certain video, for example, revenue management or price optimizer, you'll find different information. There's all kinds of videos on our YouTube channel. The unit push rate optimization, you can set up a plan or plans that are similar to what you see in the car rental industry, similar to what you see in the airline industry where pricing can change based on occupancy. You can set that up here. So for example, if your 10 by 10s are at 95% occupancy, you may want to have SiteLink tell you that maybe you could get an extra 2% in the move-in if that was your parameter. You put those options in here, and then SiteLink will prompt you on a new move-in to charge that higher rate. That's for new move-ins. The tenant rate optimization, this is for existing tenants. Again, you put in different defaults, but what it boils down to is, depending on how long someone's been in a unit or how long it's been since their rent has changed, SiteLink will prompt you to increase their rent. So those that fit that criteria, if it's been 9 months, if it's been a year, whatever category you put in here, it'll show on the reminder screen and it'll show in the pending tenant rate changes screen. So again, let's say my parameter was a year. When John Smith has been with us for a year, he's going to show up here. He's also going to show up in the reminder screen. It's going to have a bunch of different categories, but the main thing is how long has he been in his unit? How long has it been since his rent has changed? What is his rent, and what is SiteLink suggesting it should be? Ultimately, you decide what is going to happen there. Are you going to accept SiteLink's change? Are you going to make it higher? Are you going to make it lower? Are you going to dismiss it? You, again, have the choice of how you want to change it, but there's a couple of benefits of this. It streamlines the process. So instead of it now being a couple years and you're considering, wow, it's been a while since we increased rent, let's go change it now, and it's more of a drastic process having to change all of these people at once. We have like a normal process, just like we would sending a past due notice, that maybe there's 5 people that need to have their rent changed today, and then there's 2 or 3 a few days from now, because again, it's per tenant. So if it's a year, it's going to be a year for that person. You're not going to have the case where someone's been 2 years since the rent has been prompted to be changed, or the other person moved in a week ago and is telling you to change the rent. It's going to be consistent for each person, and it's a nice process to have. And lastly, we have the edit rent screen. The edit rent screen is a legacy screen. It's always been here, where at any point in time you can change the standard rate or the rental rate with the tenants actually being charged from within this screen. The reports, SiteLink has a lot of great reports. I'd say the most popular report by far is the management summary. The management summary report is a great report to look at least monthly, and it tells you a lot of different things. How much money's coming in, what's owed to you, what was credited, what's your occupancy level. And if need be, there's different reports that will break this down person by person. So for example, we have a receipts area, so we can see every single receipt that makes up these totals. There's an unpaid charges section that we can drill down to this, and so on. So this is a good starting point. Another report that a lot of people like to focus on, at least initially when they first convert the program, is the rent roll report. The rent roll report will tell you who's in what unit, what their pay-through date is, what their balance is. So when comparing this to the previous software that you're using, you can make sure everyone's in the right unit, the right balance. That gives a certain level of comfort to move forward with using SiteLink after you've verified everyone's in the right unit. We have different financial reports, general journal entries report. If you want to export to an accounting program like QuickBooks, we certainly can do that. There's probably 12 to 15 accounting programs that we interface with, QuickBooks being the most popular. If you have questions on any reporting, please let us know. Graphs, we have different trends over time that you can look at. We have a calendar option. Calendar can be the first screen that pops up when you start the program. You could set up your day for yourself. You could say every Monday morning at 9 a.m. I am to do a walkthrough of the facility. We could set that up. Or maybe we need to call someone at a certain time. SiteLink will also give you notices if there's an update coming out, if payments came in from online, and other options. So if you're familiar with an Outlook calendar, it's similar to that. And we can close it. There's a prorate calculator for your first month billing, and someone asks what would I owe if I moved in on a certain time period. This will give you the proration. There's a map that you can use as your main way to get through the program. It's color-coded. The light green are vacant units. The teal units are rented. I can double-click on a vacant unit, do a move-in. I can double-click on a rented unit, take a payment, and so on. The map is really not too bad to make. When you click Edit on the left-hand side, you see a group of units. Let's say you have 20 units in a row. Grab those 20 units. Click Add, and you can move them around. Click OK. Put them on the unit. Put them on the map very quickly. If you do them one by one, it takes a lot longer. So a big tip here is grab a bunch of units, put them on the map. If I don't put it exactly where I want it to be, I can highlight them again. I could move them around if I want to. But if you're doing it one by one, it certainly takes a lot longer. But if you do them in groups, it's a very quick process. Phone integration, I mentioned before that we work with a lot of different technology partners. If you have an account with certain call centers, we can recognize when a phone number is coming in and pops up a screen that'll know this is John Smith because of his phone number. We could do a move-in, take a payment, and so on from this screen. Another big part of this company has been what we call MyHub. MyHub has been developed over the last year, and it's a way to have browser-based functionality. So as far as I'm aware, we're the only software program out here that not only has this web edition software like this, but also has a browser-based functionality. So if I wanted to go to my smartphone, if I wanted to go to tablet, iPad, I can go to myhub.sitelink.com. Again, let me type that out again, myhub.sitelink.com here. And then I'm viewing it from my browser, but again, this could be from a tablet or a smartphone. If you're at a library, and you obviously can install SiteLink at a library, well, you could bring this up and look at different things from the library if you want to, from a browser. So I log into my given database. And I have a lot of the functionality that you have from within Web Edition here in terms of move-ins, payments, move-outs. I have reporting. different graphs that I could look through. I have a walkthrough option, which is great. Instead of taking out a piece of paper and writing on that piece of paper when you're doing your walkthrough, you could have a tablet and see your units on your tablet as you walk through. And maybe Jim, in this case, we were putting a lock on his unit. I could check overlock, and now it's in SiteLink that I put a lock on his unit. Mind you, I'm doing this all from a smartphone or from a tablet. That's My Hub. My Hub is going to continue to grow, continue to have new features. We're very excited that we now have some options that people have been asking for a long time. Again, move-ins, payments, move-outs, and transfers. But again, this will be growing and having more and more features that you use and expect from the web edition in the My Hub platform.